Hello, everyone. Welcome to Once Upon a Time in Black History. My name is Tamara Shiloh. I will be your host. I'm an author, educator, and owner of the Multicultural Bookstore in Richmond, California. I've started a new podcast that can be heard on Anchor, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So check us out and be sure to visit my website at onceuponatimeinblackhistory.com. On this episode of Once Upon a Time in Black History, we're going to talk about Juneteenth. Yes, you probably heard a lot about it, so now you're going to hear a little bit about it. All right, so it's said that the people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. All righty. They were free. So then, Major General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, delivering this order on June 19th, 1865. But he did not know he was establishing the basis for the holiday, Juneteenth. Get it? June plus 19th. Today, an annual celebration of emancipation from slavery in the United States. This, however, listen to this, came 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official January 1st, 1863. Okay, there were several theories as to why the news traveled so slowly, have been passed down through the years. So a few of them were: a messenger was murdered and on his way to Texas with the news of freedom. The news was deliberately withheld by the owners to maintain the labor force on the plantations. Well, I kind of feel like that was probably it. Federal troops actually waited for the slave owners to reap the benefits of one last cotton harvest before going to Texas to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. That probably worked too. Reaction from slaves on hearing the news ranged from pure shock to immediate joy, of course, as leaving the plantation would be their first taste of freedom. Hallelujah. Most of them had no interest in staying with the people who had enslaved them, even if pay was involved. You know, they tried to buy them back. Some were leaving before Granger had finished making the announcement. Girl, it was like, let me get out of here. What followed was called the scatter. For many slaves, North became the destination. Others, they were happy to locate family members in the neighboring states of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And on many occasions, if legally freed slaves attempted to leave, they were beaten, lynched, and murdered. It just never stops. Susan Merritt, a former slave, she remembered. She said they would catch freed slaves swimming across the Sabine River and shoot them. Jesus. Despite the terror and violence, the newly freed black men and women of Texas transformed June 19th from a day of unheeded military orders into their own annual celebration, Juneteenth. This began 1 year later, in 1866. However, segregation laws would impede such an occasion. They just won't rest. They never did. There were no public places or parks where blacks could host celebrations. So, in the 1870s, former slaves, for $800, purchased the 10-acre Emancipation Park. We make it happen, right? It was the only public park and swimming pool in Houston, Texas, area open to African Americans until the 1950s. Juneteenth celebrations that kind of went away during the era of Jim Crow laws until the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. Yay! When the Poor People's March planned by Martin Luther King Jr. was purposely scheduled to coincide with Juneteenth. The march brought Juneteenth back to the forefront. In 1980, Texas became the first state to deem Juneteenth worthy of statewide recognition. So, in southern states, Juneteenth is celebrated with oral histories and readings, red soda water, ooh yeah, or strawberry soda water, and barbecues. Some states serve Marcus Garvey salad. That was red, green, and black beans. Rodeos also was a major part in the Southwest. Juneteenth has evolved and grown in the decades since it was first marked with local festivities and commemorations. President Joe Biden in 2021 signed a bill into law to officially designate Juneteenth as an American federal holiday. Now imagine that.